We're so excited to have you all join us. Unfortunately, it's not in person, but at least it's better than nothing. So my name is Zoe Soltanmammedova, and I am Family and Consumer Sciences Agent with University of Georgia Extension Services in one of Metro Atlanta counties in Cobb County. And with me, I have
I'm Mary Beth Hornbeck. I also work for University of Georgia Extension on the outskirts of Atlanta in a more suburban county, Rockdale County, Georgia.
I'm Soo-Guan Lee. I am actually with University of Idaho as a Family and Consumer Sciences Extension Educator. I'm actually based in Twin Falls County, which is considered a little smaller compared to Georgia's Atlanta city, for sure. It's like a suburb, about 80,000 and above of a county. And I'm also a registered dietitian.
Okay, so we'll get started. So in today's session, we'll talk about the situation and background, how Kids in the Kitchen Virtual Cooking Club came to be, how we hold sessions, how each session works, the best practices that we learned throughout this almost 2 years now, year and a half, the results and impact, and of course, future implications and possible collaborations. So Kids in the Kitchen Virtual Cooking Club is a 2-hour hands-on virtual program that teaches youth nutrition, food safety, cooking skills, and all that in order to increase self-efficacy in the kitchen and confidence in the kitchen, while also building, encouraging positive family interaction from comfort of their own home. So we touch nutrition, my plate, whole grains, reducing sodium. So with each session, we try to cover those topics. Food safety is also just as important. Cooking skills and self-efficacy. And we saw it as a cooking club as a great opportunity to infuse that with nutrition, food safety, and cooking skills. So why teach kids how to cook? We know childhood obesity rate is about 18.5%. So that highlights the need for health-related interventions for youth. And then youth cooking interventions have been shown to have positive outcomes on diet behavior, such as having more increased fruit and vegetable consumption, whole grain consumption, and be more mindful of what you consume. And also we saw it as a great benefit for the whole family, because getting you to, parents think that getting to teach kids how to cook on their own takes a lot of patience and time. But with this was a great opportunity for us to have a whole family involvement. So how did the virtual cooking club started? In Cobb County, we actually had in-person cooking club, but it was limited to 15 people because we had one small kitchen. It was limited to youth ages 4th through 12th grade. And then in order to be able to attend the cooking club in Cobb County, in Metro Atlanta County area, because I'm not sure if you heard that Atlanta traffic is crazy, this is true. So they had to be within the driving distance. There was a registration fee associated with it because we had to provide food for 15 youth plus instructors. And of course, it wasn't possible during pandemic, and there was no family interaction because parents would drop off the kids and then they will come back 2 hours later. And also it wasn't possible to be a multi-county or even multi-state collaboration. It was a single county program. So when we switched to virtual, it was unlimited space. So anyone who had internet access and computer or some kind of smart device was able to attend. We decided to open it to all ages with adult supervision, and we do require during registration, we say that adult supervision required. And the reason for that is it's never too early to start teaching kids how to cook. And then they can join from comfort of their own home, regardless of location. And later on, you will see how many different counties we had. We had person from Hawaii join. We had someone register from India. It was free of charge, of course, because we didn't have to provide food for everyone. And it was great option during pandemic. There was also family involvement because we do require adult supervision, and it gave an opportunity to become a multi-county and multi-state program. So a little about our counties. Like I mentioned, I'm in Cobb County, which is one of Metro Atlanta counties. I started it in Cobb County in April 2020, and then Mary Beth was like, hey, Zoe, I see you're doing this, I'm interested. So I was like, instead of doing two separate programs, we're like, hey, let's do it together. You're more than welcome to join me and we can combine forces. And so Mary Beth and I talked through the summer and planned for our fall 2020 program. And then Sue, I actually met in person in one of National Urban Extension Conference in 2019. And last year during virtual conference, we were at the same session and we started talking, and I told her about my program and she's like, hey, I would be interested in attending a session and see if that's something that I can offer in my county. And she was like, oh, this sounds great. I am in. So that's how we started in September 2020 with 3 of us. And you can see that the program can work in metro or urban area. So the program objectives when we started with virtual cooking club was to continue impactful programming. We all know that we have to meet our participants where they are, and during pandemic, they all were virtual. We wanted to capitalize on increased interest in home cooking during quarantine, because I'm not sure if you all noticed that, but everyone was cooking, everyone was learning how to cook. And I saw that there were a lot of programs or cooking classes for adults, even like restaurants, they would offer meal kits for adults, but I didn't really see anything for kids. So I thought that it would be a great opportunity, one, to teach kids, but also it reduces stress from family members trying to find something for kids to do, trying to find something to have their kids stay active. And then utilize digital delivery methods to reach more youth, again, because it was unlimited space and we had no age limit. And then the objectives, the goals were to build confidence and competence in nutrition, food safety, and cooking skills, to promote positive family interaction, to build connection and relieve stress during pandemic, because it was stressful time for everyone, expose youth to new foods and increase willingness to try new foods, and encourage youth to engage in healthy meal preparation and safe food handling behaviors. So how did we plan menus? Each session, like I mentioned at the beginning, it was 2-hour session, and at each session we did 2 different recipes, and we wanted to highlight a variety of different cooking skills. So it will be stovetop, oven, or raw. So we would choose recipes that did include different cooking skills. And if one recipe was stovetop, we'll make sure to have a baking recipe, or if it was baking recipe, we'll make a salad. We also wanted to make sure that we're including a variety of food groups in different cuisines, consider seasonality and affordability. And we also incorporated youth recipe requests. So after each semester, we did the quarterly survey and we would ask them what they want to do. And one of the recommendations was popovers, that I've actually never done before, but I did it during cooking club, and you can actually see on the picture. So now it's one of my favorite quick breads. And we also wanted to make sure that the session can work as standalone or series. So when they do come, we don't require them to attend all sessions, because we cover the basic cooking skills, we cover nutrition and food safety with almost each session, the same things. So this is just a flyer in our fall 2020 season. We made chicken nuggets and mac and cheese in September. In October, we made turkey chili and cornbread. And in December, we made festive food crisp and harvest kale salad.
So As many of you I'm sure know in your extension careers, we are frequently teaching and showing so much more than it looks like at first blush. And so we decided to take the time to look at each of our menu items and really break down what nutrition, cooking, and food safety skills were being taught within that lesson, because most times we didn't have enough time to have any type of formal PowerPoint. It was all very learn by doing, show and tell, repeat after me type of presentation. Occasionally we'd have time for something more formal, but on our weeknight monthly programs, that wasn't really the case. So you can see for our chicken nuggets and mac and cheese, we wanted to do a kind of kids favorites type of recipes. So we talked about baking instead of frying, and how you can use whole grain breadings and low fat cheese, and you can add vegetables to your macaroni and cheese and things like that. We obviously had baking as well as some knife skills with the cutting of the chicken and things like that. But of course, we're always talking about proper hand washing and safe handling of eggs and chicken and cross-contamination. And so I think you'd be hard pressed to get youth excited to come to a food safety class standalone. I'm sure some of you have had success with that because you're amazing educators with great ideas. But I think if we really want our kids to learn food safety, embedding it in some experiential class like this is one of the best ways to do it, in ways that they will do for the rest of their life, hopefully. On the next slide, we talk about the same types of things for our turkey chili and cornbread muffins. And so we always reiterate how you wash something, how often you have to wash your hands. We sing happy birthday to whoever's birthday is in the last month. And we show how to hold the knife. So someone who's there for the first time or the second time or the 10th time is still getting the same level of instruction. We don't want to make any assumptions that people have been there before. And so a lot of times we pick recipes that we might not always choose for other groups, because we want them to practice cutting a lot of different things so they become familiar with how cutting a pepper and an onion is pretty similar in a lot of ways, but garlic and carrots might need a slightly different technique. You can see we did a stovetop recipe as well as a baking recipe that month. And then this was our kind of holiday one. So some of us did it in November, some of us did it in December. And we figured rather than trying to make big swaps on family recipes, our messaging that month was about adding fruits and vegetables in a festive way to a holiday table. And so we talked about ways you can do that, and they got excited to make their own salad dressing and make their own fruit crisp topping and things like that. So we were still covering safe handling of flour, because that's a huge thing that I think a lot of us have been teaching our participants, that it's just as risky as raw eggs or raw meats in certain ways. And they got to do a variety of measuring and cooking of preparing things like turkey bacon. And so with these side dishes, they still got just as much cooking experience as some of our other months. So I wanted to talk a little bit about our recruitment strategies. So during the pandemic, we definitely, and I think just in this day and age, we rely heavily on social media and the places that we're connected with our own social media accounts. And so we're typically putting things on Facebook and Instagram as well. And a lot of us have our own individual county extension pages, as well as our local government pages. So we would tag our local libraries or our cities or our counties to share as well, which can lead to kind of an avalanche of sharing, like the commissioner sending it out in their newsletter. I actually had a representative from the Chamber of Commerce ask if they could add it to their internal calendar, and I just sent her the flyer and the registration link, and they put it through their system. And so we have presence in the county that makes people want to share what we're doing, especially when it comes to what people deem exciting for youth. We were sure to share things on our 4-H listserv. Just as a quick aside, here in Georgia, we classify every youth as a 4-H youth, and we try to go through the enrollment process with everyone. So if we're asked if it's a 4-H program or not in Georgia, it automatically is, but in other states, you might not call it that. So we kind of co-brand things as much as we can. Idaho had a lot of success with radio spots, and so that really can be a good way to get the word out if you have a local station who's willing to give you time and things like that. It's harder in the metro Atlanta area to break in with that type of method. But we also had school contacts like counselors and teachers. Sometimes I'll share things on my personal Facebook page, and people I'm connected with in the school system will see it. And so we actually had someone who is the the head counselor for the whole district had their child come, and the principal of my husband's school where he teaches has come with their students, with their children. And so that kind of ripple effect through the school system has been very cool as well. We also were sure to announce our monthly schedule or even our quarterly or annual schedule at our service provider groups or family connections meetings and send them to the administrators for their listservs and things like that. And then we also used our official extension web calendar. So we tried to get it in a lot of places in front of people in hopes of recruitment. And so we'll have anywhere from 30 to 80 families signing up for each individual class. So we started doing registration with Google Forms. And the reason why we did that, a lot of us use Zoom registration here in Georgia, especially for adult programs, but our legal affairs guidelines for the University of Georgia required certain virtual permission forms for any youth-oriented program, which is a hassle, but totally understandable. And so we had to gather the information we needed to reach back out to them to receive forms and also kind of complete that 4-H enrollment process that they like for us to do. And so that way we were gathering information about the child. We've also started asking for any dietary issues or restrictions, so we can keep that in mind and give alternatives. If we're doing, for example, we wanted to know if there was any egg allergies. The week we were trying to do French toast and some kind of egg bake, it'd be very hard to participate if you had a child with an egg allergy or multiple children that way. And so we really liked how we can really control what's being asked and get the information we need to follow up with families ahead of time. The way that we typically move on from there is that we send the recipes about 1 week ahead. So whenever that family is going to go to the grocery store, they're able to pick up those ingredients. We have made the decision, to make our recipes not too colorful, hopefully, so they don't have to use a lot of ink if they decide to print them. We try to do full page formats as well as social media formats. So that way we can post it on those same pages we were doing recruitment for people who weren't able to or aren't interested in participating in our class. They can still be kind of in the environment of thinking about what healthy recipes we're promoting that month. And so we made the decision with this program to not break it down into any explicit equipment list or grocery list, because in the real world, we want them to have that skill of being able to make those determinations based on an actual recipe they might be finding or following. We actually did a summer camp version of this in Georgia, where we had 3 days of them logging on for a slightly longer amount of time. So for something like that, we did prepare a grocery list. So if you were to come on board or have a similar program in your state, you can decide what you think works best for you, if you would prefer to do a grocery list or not. I've also had some people ask me questions about kind of economic hardship and things like that. And we felt there would be a way potentially to do kind of food kits or something if you had issues with families not being able to afford ingredients, but we didn't feel too terrible about asking people to shop for themselves, because they were getting a full meal for their family versus just a sampling that you might get if you dropped your child off at a $15 workshop or something like that. You're getting a meal for your whole family versus or a family of 4 versus just one person getting one portion. But there's definite ways to be creative and accessible to more people in the future. So the way that we kind of break down our sessions nitty gritty are that we do about 2 hours. So that leaves enough time for youth to finish all the steps in nearly every case, as well as provide feedback and ask questions. We usually take pictures at the end. We try to do surveys throughout, which we'll talk about. But if it was just us cooking the recipes, we could probably finish both recipes in 45 minutes. But we know that people are starting from different places. Sometimes we have families who are doubling the recipes because they have 6 children and things like that. So the 2-hour time frame has worked very well for us so far. So in that time, we always prepare 2 recipes that we've already kind of talked about are chosen for a variety of skills and cooking methods. And we do our best to not have 2 stovetop or 2 oven or 2 raw recipes in the same session. And so we really recommend having 2 facilitators. That may already be a policy, 2 or more. That may already be a policy in your state where you must have 2 people, especially for virtual programs with youth. And so the ideal would be 1 facilitator demonstrating. So they're doing the hands-on cooking. They might have 2 screens, like 2 cameras going, depending. while the other person is monitoring the chat as well as participant videos. The way that Zoe and I do it is that we've actually decided, let's each only prepare one recipe. We might be jealous of the food the other one gets to eat, but that way we're kind of spreading the wealth with even just buying the ingredients from our own county extension budgets. And that way you only have to prepare for one, and then you get to sit, you don't have to stand for the whole 2 hours. And so we always try to tell the kids, they don't always remember, but you have to ask your questions in the chat to the person who's not cooking. I know you're looking at Miss Zoe, you want to ask Miss Zoe the question, but she's not looking at the chat. She can't see it. So if you directly message her, you're not going to get the help or the slow down that you need. And so we ask them to, in most cases, put it in the chat to everyone, because it's not always good. There's always kind of questions with ethics that come up if they're directly messaging adults as well. And so that's what we do. I know that in Idaho, Sue has someone usually sit in with her, but they are not doing any of the cooking. They are purely managing the chat. And so we might mention it again later, but we typically mute the children. We don't allow them to unmute because we don't want someone with no experience to or just certain social cues to take over the whole session, because we're not limiting attendance at all. So we kind of think if you have more than 10 or 12 people, it's going to be too chaotic to try to let them unmute and participate with their voice. So we try to get them all through the chat. And the facilitator, what we've decided to do is put the steps from the recipes in all capitals. So hopefully they're easy to find compared to the other chatter that might be happening in that chat box. So these are some of the views that you might see during a session. So the bottom right is me showing how to cut chopped nuts into smaller pieces. So I have my chef's knife and I have my other hand out of the way to show them that when you're cutting teeny tiny pieces, there's really nothing for your other hand to do. So it's kind of exaggerated what I might show, how to get your hand out of the way. You can see that the picture above that is Miss Zoe on her computer and one of the children's muffins that they baked. So they send us pictures of those views, and you can see that they can see what we're doing and they have their foods at the same time. On the other side, you can see some of our kind of group picture galleries. We try to leave enough time for everyone to hold up their foods, even if they didn't have their camera on the whole time. Hold up their food so they can share their pride with us and we can see everyone's kind of things. But also we ask them as much as they can to leave their cameras on and show us, so we can say, oh, so-and-so needs a little bit more time, or so-and-so's pancakes look great, or whatever it is. So we provide a lot of positive reinforcement, but also use it as a tool to see if we need to slow down or provide more guidance for individual youth participating. So since April 2020, we've had at least 900 youth. It's sometimes hard to count how many kids are on an individual device. So you might have just one adult and one child participating, or you might have multiple family members. The average session attendance is 40 people. So we have one session run in Georgia and one session run in Idaho each month. The majority of attendees have come back at least twice. And we have been able to reach people from 16 counties and 5 states, even with the requirements that we had for those forms as COVID went on. So we're really proud of that. And just a kind of snapshot of who's coming. The average age is around a 5th grader, so 10 or 11 years old. But we've had youth as young as 4 participate, and they are some of our most loyal families who come day in and day out, week in and week out. They love it. And it just depends, when you are choosing age groups for things like this, someone who's 15 might have never cooked before. So they might be in very similar places, a 5-year-old and a 15-year-old in certain regards. We've had somewhat youth as old as 18 participate. And we mentioned this before, but we always require adult supervision because a 15-year-old, just like an adult, can cut themselves or burn themselves. And we don't want that anyone to be alone while this is happening. We prefer them to be cooking together in the kitchen, but if they just need to be available if something was to happen. We've seen some siblings and even whole families. We did show a whole grain video that Zoe made before, and we could see on the screen that everyone in the family had stopped to watch this video about whole grains. So that was really cool. And so like I said before, some parents observe, others participate. Some people really look forward to it. We were shocked with some of the evaluation results that it was a huge stress relief and family bonding activity for families during the pandemic, and that was an unintended benefit for sure.
So for evaluation, we gave surveys using Zoom polls during the class to collect the data and evaluate the program outcomes. In fact, initially, when we started the program, we sent parents an email after the class and asked them to complete a survey on Qualtrics. But quickly, we learned that that didn't work. We didn't get much of their responses. It was quite a bummer. So then we switched it to Zoom polls to be embedded in the class. That way, we could not only ensure higher response rates, but also we could make the section more interactive. And so far has been doing pretty well. So we have been using Zoom polls since then. And our survey questions actually were adapted from the iCook 4H curriculum. The survey included statements related to knowledge, skills, and self-efficacy in the kitchen, which were measured using a 5-point Likert scale, with 1 being strongly disagree to 5 being strongly agree. We also took pictures during the class, as Mary Beth mentioned, and we always ask parents to share with us their action pictures. We so love to see those pictures. It was so great to see that. And I'm going to share with you some of the pictures in the next couple slides. To obtain qualitative data, we did use a follow-up email using like a follow-up surveys using Qualtrics and ask parents to provide their feedback. That helped not only to improve our program, but also we really would like to hear from them what they thought about the program, what they have learned, what other recipes they would like to make, and just overall any other suggestions that we could do. So that is the follow-up surveys to obtain qualitative data. Here are some of the examples of the survey questions. The survey, as you can see, cover different components, including cooking skills, such as understanding the difference between measuring wet and dry ingredients, or how to follow a recipe. Nutrition and food safety knowledge, such as hand washing, and self-efficacy in cooking, such as making the recipes again. The responses were actually analyzed ranging from 1, again, being strongly disagree, to 5 being strongly agree when answering the surveys. As you can see, the mean scores on the right, that the mean scores that we received, they were at least 4 and above, showing that most responded agree or strongly agree with those survey statements. So overall, the post-evaluation showed that 88% of participants gained their food safety and nutrition knowledge, 92% increased self-efficacy for cooking, and 93% gained cooking skills. Also, I mentioned about the follow-up surveys. 100%, so all families actually told us that they make the recipes again. So more than 1 recipes after the cooking club, they make their recipes again at home. So this is just a collection of the recipes of the cooking club that we have made, or the participants have made so far. We pretty much covered that, those recipes were kids friendly. We included the items that actually the kids requested. And because the cooking club typically was offered in the evening, so 5 or 5:30 local time. So we are basically making dinner together. So we make sure that, we incorporate the different food groups to have a healthy and balanced meals for the family. As mentioned, we always talk about food choices, low sodium food options, using herbs or spices to spice up their dishes, how to make their favorite food healthier using cooking methods, like for example, the baked chicken nuggets and macaroni and cheese. Those are the kids' favorite menu items, and they really like that, enjoy that. And at the end of the section, we always encourage families like, oh, the section is over. It's really the family meal time now. So you should, all sit down together and have a family meal time together after the class, so that they can enjoy the meal together. This is probably, I would say, one of my favorite slides. Those pictures, actually all of these pictures were actually taken and sent by the parents. As you can see, they really enjoy the cooking club. In the beginning of the cooking club, I always mention that the kids, they are actually the chef of the family tonight. They are the chef and they are the one making the meals for their family. Of course, with adult supervision. But that way they feel very proud. They were so proud, as you can all see in the pictures, that they were so proud of themselves being part of the process. And parents also were very happy to get their kids involved in the kitchen and cook together. As mentioned, in most cases, it's more than just one family member. It's everyone cooking together, which means they are able to spend quality time together, cooking together and strengthening their family bonds. So this is just some of the qualitative data we got from the parents. This was some of the quotes from the parents. This program showed my children how to prepare a full healthy dinner. We have learned that it's very easy to cook and bake yummy yet healthy foods. My 5-year-old feels such a huge sense of accomplishment being able to cook for our family, and it's been so fun to see how proud she is. So not only it was fun, but also a big accomplishment for just a 5-year-old, and for them to cook together. It was so great to hear that. So when we asked them, what has cooking club meant to you and your family? And those are the responses. It has been a great family activity. So this is one of my favorite quotes. My 6, 4, and 2-year-old had the best time ever. When Dad arrived, they make sure to tell Dad that the skin on apples is really healthy for him and he needed to eat it all. So that's referring to the crunchy apple salad that actually in the previous slide that the kids were showing it. So they make the apple salad, but then they make sure to tell Dad to eat the peel of the apples. It was pretty cute. When we asked them, what have you learned about nutrition, food safety, cooking, and baking from Cooking Club? The responses were included the importance of adding veggies into every dish possible. I've learned that you shouldn't eat raw batter because flour is a raw ingredient. Yeah, we should make sure to highlight that. The last one, separating foods can prevent foodborne illness like meat juice dripping in the fridge. Yeah, they learned that too, all the food safety components. So this slide is actually just to really recap what Zoe mentioned in the beginning of her presentation. This virtual cooking club really has provided many, many benefits. It cuts down all the expenses you typically would spend on the traditional classes. Sometimes you don't even know how many will show up, or you have to plan on it. But with this virtual format, there are really less ingredients to purchase and less things to prep. The virtual format also allows more youth to participate. Everyone can see front row in front of the front row seats, and no need to take turns. Regardless of where they live, as we mentioned, there's no there's no urban, no need to deal with transportation, whether they live in a rural or urban area, farms or big cities. That's just no need to deal with the transportation, or even the weather, rain or shine, winter time, we don't need to deal with that as long as there's no power outage, and you can access to the internet and you can meet us at this time. It all works. And everyone can participate from the comfort and really safety from their home kitchens. Finally, one more thing. Family, everyone in the family, parents and siblings, they all can join and cook together and enjoy the family meal time afterwards. So family time.
Okay, so the best practices that we learned from 1.5 years of this virtual cooking club was, one of the things was ask about dietary restrictions, because when I started, I actually really didn't think about it. And I had a lot of parents when we made Chinese chicken and veggie stir fry. I was like, well, I don't eat chicken. I was like, oh, you can add tofu. But if I was to tell them that ahead of time, they would have been better prepared. So that day they had to just leave out the chicken. So asking about dietary restrictions is very helpful. And then share meatless. Sometimes we will either choose meatless recipes, or we will, when we send them recipes, we will tell them the meatless options. and then test full recipe for your comfort. So I actually have a story. We were making whole grain blueberry muffins, and I did not test them ahead of time, but the batter was so thick. So I was like, oh my gosh. And I told kids, I'm like, y'all, I like, just like for you all, this is a learning experience for me. I mean, it was more relatable for them. But I was like, I'm not sure. Let's hope the batter turns out. And I was like, we all make mistakes. So if these muffins don't turn out, like, we're learning. But they actually like turned out to be really good. So I was very impressed, and the kids were impressed too. So it's one of my favorite healthy muffin recipes. And also be ready for unexpected. So testing the recipe ahead of time, it helps you be prepared for the unexpected. We were actually making pizza crust from scratch. And there's one kid, I'm not sure if they didn't follow the recipe or what, they kept adding flour and adding flour and adding flour, and their dough would never, like, they will show it on the screen, and it was so like liquidy. And luckily the day before, it was during our summer cooking camp, the day before we made the recipe with tortillas. So we had to think on the spot. I was like, hey, you should have tortillas left over from yesterday. And they're like, yep. I'm like, so you're gonna use that as your pizza crust. And in the end, they still had their pizza. We call it tortilla. So they were able to still participate.
A few more best practices. Some of these we've already mentioned, so we definitely stand strongly by the 2 facilitator model. It is very hard to try to do crowd control and hands-on cooking and making sure the camera angles are good at the same time. Sometimes Zoe will let us know that our camera turned off or it's at the wrong angle or something like that. The chat only has been very good for us. So sometimes we'll let them unmute at the very end as people are signing off to let us know what they thought of it when we taste it together, but it's usually like half the group has signed off and it's the stragglers who we let talk to us. And then one thing that we've learned over time is that it's a good practice to think about communicating steps ahead of time. For bigger families who might be doubling their recipes, or people who know that they're just not going to be able to keep up. Just thinking ahead of what to do. We've also had it the other way where some families like prep all their vegetables one day, so they aren't really cutting with us, and that's kind of up to them, but trying to think ahead for the various types of families who might be attending.
Really, pandemic or not, we are going to continue offering Kids in the Kitchen virtual cooking club. With the success of the program, we think that that's really a potential to grow beyond Georgia and Idaho. So we would like to take this opportunity to welcome other extension professionals. If you're interested to collaborate with us in your state or your county, so that more youth can participate as well. I think Mary Beth put in the information in the chat box. So if you're interested, we're sharing the materials with you. So if you decide to offer the program, just let us know so that we can add the results together. And that way we can really expand the bank of the menus and offering in a different time zone. So starting this fall, our theme is around the world. So we will talk about different international cuisines. Kids of all ages can join us and cook around the world without leaving their home kitchen. It's pretty cool. Last month we did Indian food. That was pretty fun. And our next stop is Africa, which is this month's team. We will be making African chicken stew and jollof rice. In Idaho, typically I offer the cooking club on Thursday evening around 5:30 Mountain Time, while Georgia team, they offer it on Tuesday evening at 5. So if you're interested in piloting or just wanted to check out, you can sign up using the link here and just join us, either cook with us and see how the program works. We definitely welcome any other collaborators, and feel free to put in your email address here. So really appreciate all your time to listen to us, and just enter your email address so that we can provide the information to you. And thank you. Here's our contact information, our email address, and that is a QR code if you want to access to the materials.
Yeah, and the QR code is the same as the link that I put in the chat, and we'll email it out again to everyone who puts their email in the chat box. But otherwise, we have a few more minutes if anyone has any specific questions that we can try to answer now.
Yeah, I think you all should be able to unmute yourself. That way you don't have to type in the chat box. So feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions. Could you talk about camera placement and angles? Yes. So when I started April 2020, I only had my laptop and I lived in an apartment. So I had like a little bar area. So I'll just set my, because it was like, yeah, we went home and then April, I'm like, I had to think, and I'm not very tech savvy at all. So if I can do it, y'all can do it. So I would just set my laptop on the bar and I would like lean my screen lower so they can see my hand. So I had to like play with it. And then finally I got the tripod. So I will have my phone set up where they can see what I'm doing. And then my laptop set up where they can see my face. So at least 2 is helpful.
Yeah, and I've done something similar. I usually take my laptop and I put it on a few board games. I have a cell phone tripod as well. And then I usually have the phone be more of a overhead view. And then I can either have it on my face, like Zoe said, or sometimes I'll even bring my secondary monitor so I can also see, I can have my 2 and what's happening in the chat or the different pictures of the youth.
And then is this program free of charge? Yes, it's free of charge because we felt, well, like as extension, we're a nonprofit. So we felt like if we charge them, we have to provide something to them. We were just providing education and like we didn't have to cover the food. During the summer, when we did summer cooking club, we did charge them $10 for 3 days, again, minimum fee, just so that we have commitment because it was limited. But we did give them like little kits with some useful kitchen gadgets.
But I know that there's definitely philosophical thoughts about our education is worthwhile. So we kind of go back and forth if we should charge. But Sue, feel free to, I know you were trying to say something about either of those questions.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't, it's free of charge in Idaho as well so far. As Zoe mentioned, we just don't think that it's, at this time, we to charge them because they actually pay for their own food cost. And so for me, I'm using my own budget just to test the recipes, sometimes multiple times, like the popovers, for example. I think I tested at least 3 times in my office kitchens just to be sure. So those things like that, I don't think that, you know, we can cover using our own budget. And definitely 2 cameras are helpful. You definitely need that. One is really just, you know, general view, and then one is if you want to have a top down to look at the stove or different equipments.
Okay, so how did you toggle which camera was showing at the right time? So like when Mary Beth was making recipes, I can spotlight both of her cameras so kids can see her face and her hands. So, and then when I was doing the recipe, I can like Mary Beth would spotlight myself. So you can spotlight on Zoom. So we'll learn that later on as well.
Yeah, and I think I didn't know for a long time till I took a cooking class from someone else that you can spotlight multiple videos, which is helpful. Sometimes we'll spotlight all of the instructor videos. But just one thing I didn't know for the longest time also, that you only want to join the audio on one device. Otherwise, you'll have lots of feedback. And so you don't have to worry about muting. You just don't have it on either your computer or your cell phone, whichever one you think is better.
Yeah, but your participants will definitely tell you, can you spotlight this? I can't see you. So yeah, you have to really keep in mind the chat box. Pay attention to their feedback.
And the second facilitator is very good, kind of like we said, of if you think that you're showing something and you're not, they can be like, you really need to change the angle of your computer by 30 degrees.
Any other questions? Also, you need to have at least 3 cameras for spotlighting to work. That's something new to me because we were able to spotlight with 2.
You think maybe she just means like there's 3 devices, like,
oh,
you can't.
Oh yeah, at least, yes, 3 participants. Yeah. Any other questions? We have another minute left. Phil, like Mary Beth posted links, and there are our future November cooking clubs coming up. If you want to just join and observe, feel free to register and join. And if you have any questions, we are happy to stay here a couple more minutes. And if no, thank you for your time. I hope you all enjoyed it. And yeah.
And enjoy the NEAFCS sections.
Yes.
Can you save the chat, Zoe? I can't seem to
Yes.
save it.
Is there a registration link or page if we want to join your class? So the link that Mary Beth just posted, there should be a flyer for our November one. For Sue, like she mentioned, she does it on Thursdays, and Mary Beth and I would do it on Tuesdays. So there is a registration link on there.
Just keep in mind, one is on Eastern time and one is on Mountain time.